Bueno, hemos empezado muy fuerte, hemos empezado muy bien, pero vamos a continuar. El siguiente tema, la siguiente mesa va a ser sobre reskilling, una nueva vía europea. Vamos a hablar de ese reciclaje que todos necesitamos dentro de nuestras empresas, de nuestros trabajos, y que va a ser una constante y seguro que va a ir todavía más allá. Vamos a contar en esta mesa con Marco Dondi, es Future of Work Expert and Associate Partner de McKinsey. También va a estar Joao Amaral, que es Chief Development Officer de Sonae.
Y completarán esa mesa María Lilistrom, HR Project Lead de AstraZeneca, Luis Miguel Olivas, director del área de empleabilidad e innovación educativa de la Fundación Telefónica, y la moderadora es Judith A., Policy Director de la European Roundtable. Un fuerte aplauso para ellos.
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm Judith I from European Roundtable for Industry. It's a huge pleasure to be here. It's also a huge privilege to be here. I think you've just been introduced to the panel. Maybe very quickly, this is Marco Dondi, who's the Future of Work expert and associate partner at McKinsey. Then we have Joao Amaral, Chief Development Officer at Sonae. Maria Lilström, the HR project lead at AstraZeneca. And we have Luis Miguel Olivas, who you know already, and who's the Director of Employability and Innovation in Education at Fundación Telefónica, so one of our hosts, and the reason we are all here today.
Thank you.
Maybe very quickly a few words on ERT, because you probably haven't heard yet of ERT. ERT is the European Roundtable for Industry. It's a platform for currently 58 chairs or CEOs of leading European industrial companies, and the emphasis is on industrial and European, so only companies headquartered in Europe. And it's a very cross-sectional association, but what we have in common is a central concern on the competitiveness of Europe's industry, and therefore the future and the prosperity of Europe per se. So that is the guiding light. And then you may wonder, what has competitiveness to do with skills? If you think about competitiveness, you think about prices, you think about markets, you think currently especially about energy, you might think about technical innovation, you certainly will think about the green transition and the digital transition as well, but you might not necessarily think about skills. And that, of course, is a mistake, because skills are the foundation for our workforce. So without a skilled workforce in Europe, European industry cannot be competitive. And that, of course, brings us to the question of how can the workforce keep up their skills with technological innovation and with the green and the digital transition. So how can European industry remain competitive by updating, if you want to call it that way, a key component of its ingredient, and that is the skills of the workforce. So skills is important from a social inclusion angle. Skills is very important from an inequality angle, but skills is also very, very important from a competitiveness angle. And for that reason, a few of our members in 2021 announced that they would start an initiative called Reskilling for Employment. Now, all the representatives here on the panel are participating in Reskilling for Employment, so I'm going to leave the introduction of what this is all about and how we do it to them. And I hope afterwards you will all be experts, or at least highly interested. So, very quickly maybe, a first round of questions. And I would start with Marco. Marco is from McKinsey. McKinsey is playing a very important role in informing and supporting our initiative on R4E, and Marco, of course, is an expert on reskilling. Maybe Marco, first question to you. What is the reskilling challenge for Europe?
Thanks, Judith, and hi, everyone. Europe has always had a skill gap, and many other continents have. This is not new. 20 years ago, employers was talking about students not coming to work with the right skills. I think the digital and green transition are accelerating a problem that was already there, and it hasn't been solved. I would try to think of 3 different type of skill gaps and therefore reskilling. There is one that is really at the occupational level. There are some occupations that have just not enough people, and this is going to be, the gap is becoming bigger. We reckon that in Europe, about 20 million people will need to change occupation between now and 2030 to keep being employed. This is from the digital transition, from the green transition. Already now there's about 1 million vacancies in the ICT sector. It's expected that 10 more million people in ICT will be needed by 2030. And even the green transition, solar and wind only, today there's about 300,000 people employed in these 2 sectors, and it's expected to shift to 1 million by 2030. So it's also a significant gap, and this is just occupation gaps, like full jobs that that we don't have enough people to fill, and also full jobs that are declining. And these transitions are the more complex one because it's the training component takes longer. It's at least 400 or 500 hours of training, so it's not insignificant. They cost more, and therefore sometimes this is not economical for businesses. And sometimes they also affect the person. The individual is oftentimes the identity is linked to a job, and you're asking someone middle career to change completely that. Some of these are easier change compared, if you're a bank teller and you become a sales agent, is probably more similar. But some of these transitions are, from a bank teller to a software developer or a technician. And so some of these are more complex and more and deeper. Then there is another type of reskilling, which is within the same occupation. Technologies are changing all the time, and so to do your job better, you need significant upskilling or reskilling, if you want to call it that way. And we reckon that about 100 million people in Europe will actually need a significant of this type of reskilling and upskilling, which is about 1/3 of the workforce. And just a couple of examples to bring it to life. This may be that there's a lot of installers today that are installing gas boilers, and in the future they'll need to start installing much more heat pumps. And this is important, otherwise the transition will happen more slowly. Another example that is also interesting is that there are new standards in the ICT coming up all the time, and there are some standards that have a lot of potential, but if you don't know the standard, you don't have the capabilities to implement it, this simply doesn't happen. And then there's a third one, which is more the transversal skills and mindsets that have always been, like employers have always seek for these type of skills when they hire, and often complained about it. And without the innovative mindset and the creativity mindset and the risk-taking mindset, many of these innovations and opportunities are just not captured, right? We reckon that about 60% of the target for carbon reduction is just about expediting the implementation of existing technologies. And so this is to some extent the lowest hanging fruit, but it's a combination of knowing what you need to do, but also having the mindset and the drive to be able to drive this change, take the risk, communicate and mobilize the organization. And this is not easy to cover, because it takes long to change the mindsets of people, and that requires the education system to think about that and prioritize that, and also business and the business culture to prioritize that continuous development of the person, the attitude and the mindsets.
Thank you, Marco. João, what can corporates do? What should corporates do?
Hello, good morning to all. And bringing in the corporate perspective, I think that first of all, the corporates must understand and acknowledge that there is this problem that Marco was telling us. And companies are feeling it, but after feeling it, they also need to prepare themselves to solve this problem. We need to understand that this is very demanding in immediate action, but also in scale. So we always felt this problem, like Mark was telling us, but it was in some occupations or in little number of occupations inside of our company. And today, this is happening at scale in several occupations. If we look, for instance, at a retailer, we must be planning what will happen to cashiers in a food retailer over the next 5 to 10 years. because with self-checkouts, with self-scanning, with other solutions, this occupation might either disappear or be extremely reduced. Then beyond acknowledging that we have a problem and that we need to act on it, we need to understand that it has a different complexity. So companies need to do strategic workforce planning. When we started our project and started looking for what companies know about their current needs and their future needs, and for future I mean for the next 3 to 5 years, we were surprised to know that they know very little about future needs in terms of what amount of people will have to be reskilled. Then also employees are facing uncertainty. So if I am in a profession that I foresee that will be extinguished in the near future, people feel the uncertainty and start looking for alternatives for what they can do inside the company. They must work together on this. So first, companies must acknowledge, then they must understand that this is a complex and new problem to work on, and the third is to understand that no one can solve this problem alone. We need to solve this problem inside an industry, but more than that, with the cooperation of public and private companies working together, because this is a complex problem. This is a problem that needs relevant funding to be solved and needs different approaches to be able to solve a problem like this. So that's how we launched the R4E initiative, this reskilling for employment. It was with this concern, no one will be able to solve this problem or to address this problem alone. So we need to mobilize the private sector and the public sector to cooperate and collaborate with each other. We need to provide resources and knowledge. It was very important, this collaboration with McKinsey as the knowledge partner for this project, to make sure that we have the data, that we have the numbers, that we can foresee what occupations will be, which are threatened in the near future. And to instantiate one of these examples of public and private partnerships, SAP, Nestlé and Sonai in Portugal addressed the Portuguese government and started working with the Portuguese labor agency and the employment and training agency to make sure that we start creating several reskilling initiatives in areas that are needed by relevant companies. And we have more than 30 companies already involved beyond Nestlé, SAP and Sonai. And we are working together here in a 7-step methodology that we designed throughout this project. And it is being implemented now in 8 different trainings, reskilling initiatives, each one of them with around 600 hours, both in training and internships. So this is happening as we speak. We did first a prototype with maintenance technicians, and we now have 7 labs going on in 7 other professions, and we have very fruitful cooperation between public sector and companies, and the cooperation that is a trust-building one. So we are also improving in the way we work together.
Thank you, João. As you can see, it's about people, but it's also about people, meaning if people, selective people, don't take the initiative to move something, then ultimately we will not be able to even reach the realization that we need to reskill strategically, not to mention the scale. Maria, tell us something about Sweden.
Yeah, and first of all, I just want to say hi to everyone. So I want to reflect back to what Marco told us around the trends in Europe. It's not so different from the trends in Sweden. We still have high demand occupations that are more traditional, like the industry and the healthcare system, but we also see a huge need of our future capabilities within the green transition and the digitalization that's happening. But it's not always people reskilling into a completely new role. It's also to have people to upskill, or in some cases even reskill, to be able to maintain in the same role. And this requires a huge culture change from all the stakeholders in our ecosystem, both private and public sector, as well as individuals and universities and training providers.
Thank you, Maria. Luis Miguel, the digital world. What's happening?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, all of you, to be here, to come here, to share your vision in Enlightened event. It's very easy to talk the last one and not repeat some message, huh? But I will try to say some information in addition. Of course, we are now in an important moment in the society. We know that digitalization has arrived to all the productive sector of our economy, but also in the last years, the digitalization has been accelerated. No? And then, if I talk about what is happening here in Spain, but not only in Spain, in other countries in Europe and in other countries of Latin America, we have a lot of colleagues here from Latin America, and there are a lot of people following this event by streaming. What is happening really? We have a high unemployment rate. Here in Spain, more than 12% of unemployment rate. And on the other hand, there are a lot of vacancies, there are a lot of profiles that the companies are demanding, and they are not finding. And neither the education system is not preparing as fast as we would like. It's a very big problem for our society. Then we started to create this because we think that now is the moment to join efforts, the private sector and the companies with the governments. We have to create this public-private partnership. It's very important to work together. And now we have a great opportunity to do that here in Spain also. But it's the moment also to analyze exactly what the people needs. Of course, the companies, the employers, we are asking, and regarding one of your mentioned before, we are asking people with other skills. We need the famous soft skills. We need people with tolerance of frustration. We need people with creativity, with proactive, with initiative, people with flexibility to adapt to the change also. But of course, the knowledge is very important, but we need to invest our efforts to offer opportunities to other people. Not only the companies not only are finding the students of university. Also, for example, here in Spain is very important the vocational training. It's a period in education where during 2 years the students are studying in the high schools, and later they came to our company and they continue learning inside of the companies. Really, when we decide to add our programs to reskilling for employment, here in Spain we were working with other 2 champions. We are 3 champions here in Spain. Iberdrola is leading the energy lab, the energy sector. They are, for example, they are analyzing which profiles they are needed in the green jobs. It's amazing because there are a lot of opportunities also in the digital transformation of the energy sector. And SAP and Telefónica, we are leading the digital and technology lab. But it's not only to create the content. We also need to explore the initiative, to explore the needs that the companies have, and we have to act very, very quickly. Now we have an opportunity in Europe, and we have to act very, very quick.
Thank you. If I may summarize, we all agree that we have to act, so that we do have to reskill for many reasons. We have also agreed on the timing. The timing is now, and not in a few years' time or whenever the problem has already grown too big to manage. So the window of opportunity is now. But we haven't quite discussed the how. And the how is also really important because, of course, there is no point in being activist. You also have to be smart. And given that we're here today and that most of you are very experienced, especially in the digital space, maybe let's look into how to do that for the digital space. And I would revert to Marco. Marco, how do you reskill someone mid-career towards a digital profession?
So maybe let's start with the mid-career, because indeed when people are mid-career, it's a bit different than if they just finish university or they're finishing it. And mid-career, it means that they have a family, they need to hold a job, and either someone is paying their salary while they study, or the program needs to be either very short or something that they can attend at night or in the weekends. Then the ICT, it's a very interesting angle because the demand of the employer is simply there. There are a variety of occupations in the digital space where I would say the time is not now, the time was 15 years ago. And therefore, anyone that goes through a well-designed digital reskilling program finds a job. So in a non-digital occupation, the priority is probably making sure that there is a job at the end of the line, at the end of the reskilling, because you can't take a person mid-career, leading them through a very extensive retraining and reskilling, and then not having a job at the end. This would be dramatic. This luckily is not the case for digital, so there's many occupations in digital, and some of these are entry level, so that's the big opportunity here. Someone that has very limited education, but the right capabilities and intrinsic skills to be reskilled and succeed in many of these digital occupations can do that in a very short time. There are programs the intensive one, they are as short as 12 to 14 weeks, and they get people from having zero knowledge of coding, for example, to being a junior software developer, highly sought after, with relatively good wages, because of course the other side of everyone being late is that there's so few people that have these skills that the wages in general increase. And so maybe I'll cover three things that are specifically important for digital. One is the selection of candidates, because this is not for everyone. The second is, depending if it's businesses or governments running this program, but there is a selecting of the right training partners. And the third one is the funding, which is, I think, particularly interested in the digital space, especially. So on the selection of the candidate, it's true in digital and it's true in every occupation. If someone mid-career needs to invest a lot, you need to make sure that the match is good, right? You need to make the service to this person that if they don't have the skill to succeed, you need to assess them and tell them, this is not the path for you. And so I think it's important, and then it's linked to the selection of the training providers. Many training providers, especially the ones that work for profit, they'll take whoever, right? And so if you're thinking as a business or as a government, you need to make sure that when you select the training provider, you make sure that they are not taking anyone, and they think about the more people, the more money I make. But they do it so in a way that if the person is not right, I need to turn them away. And so typically you can do that, and this is the link to funding, with creating the contract or the incentive mechanism or the tenders if it's public, where some of the compensation is linked to low dropouts, high employability rates. So you make sure that basically the selection is done well, the program is designed in a way that is conducive to employment, and that's how you get the impact that industry needs and that society needs and the individual needs.
Thank you, Marco. João, what about the human element of successful reskilling?
Yes, and Marco already mentioned part of it, and in a very interesting way. But for me, I think that one thing that is key is alignment of interests. And if we look in a very concise way to this, we need people with will, we need companies with empathy, and we need to fund these efforts. What does this mean? So people with will, what we have been seeing is that Luismi talks about change, and we all need to be motivated to change and so on, but the normal human being doesn't love to change. So if I studied for a specific profession and I'm doing it well, why should my profession be extinguished? Why should I be the one that has to go to a new profession? I was very happy working in my bank, and now I have to be a software developer, or now I have to be a maintenance technician. So first, why me? And after the why me, people need to have the will to this. What we have been seeing is that when we have 1,000 candidates to a training or to a reskilling initiative that has 20 places, we'll be very successful. When we don't find the candidates that really have the will and we just find a few candidates to train, then this might be different. Then another thing, we talked about mid-career. But mid-career means that I'm going to hire a reskilled person that was reskilled to be, for instance, a maintenance technician that is 50 years old and has no experience. So we need a lot of empathy by the companies to hire inexperienced people, to pay them and to be supportive for them in the way they will enter again in the job market. And these are people that have children at home or that are paying for the loan of their houses. So it's not an easy move, a change that people make without any concern. And then we need also money to do this. And we need to do this at scale and with the numbers that Marco mentioned in the beginning. We are talking of in the sizable billions of euros for Europe. And to have that money, governments also have to have the interests aligned with what people need and want and with what companies need and want. The second major word here for me is trust. Organizations are not used to work with each other. I mentioned that in Portugal, Sonai, Nestlé and SAP are working together. We never worked together in the past unless to sell things from each other and to buy things from each other. Luismi mentioned Iberdrola, mentioned the Telefónica, and SAP, they are also working together, designing things together. This needs trust to be able to do this without thinking what's in it for me only, but also thinking in the people and the candidates that we need. We also need to build trust between private companies and public institutions. When we started in Portugal, I started talking to the companies. We are going to have a program where we are going to work with a labor agency, and the company started saying, no, I don't work with them, they don't work well. When we went to the labor agency and to the Portuguese Prime Minister, the labor agency said, no, I don't want to work with these companies, they just want our money. So, and after 1.5 years, today we have in these labs, every time we start a meeting, they start saying good things about each other. So trust is really key for us to be able to work with each other and to make sure that these things move forward in the right way. I always say that if this project would stop now in Portugal, at least one thing would have been conquered, and this is that the public institutions and the 30 or 40 companies that are working with them are aligned and are trusting each other. So, and this was already done with one government change and 3 presidents of that labor agency that change over this way. So this is transforming itself into a sustainable thing. And the last one that I think is really important is about walking the talk and making sure that in our first experiences, we are not discussing if we pay for the internships, how much we pay for the internships, because we really need to show that the companies are in this for good, for their CSR initiatives. We are not training and developing people for the companies itself. We are training people for them and for the industries and for the competitiveness of the sectors. We need really to make sure that the candidates that we select are the ones that have the will. So this is the only way, in our opinion, that we will make this movement be a resilient one, because, as Marco mentioned, what we are now entering will not change. So now and forever, technology will keep advancing very fast, jobs will change, the needs will change, and this problem that we are facing today, that already existed since the Industrial Revolution, but in a very small scale, will continue forever. So we'll need to be resilient and find solutions that stick and that stay forever.
Thank you, João. So it's a clear case for teamwork at all possible levels, and also for innovation of how we think about this and how we work about this together, and also with whom we work. So it's a creation of new alliances in the very best way. We haven't really talked so much about the people being reskilled and how we get them interested and how we make sure that they actually understand that they might need to get reskilled. Because I would say usually when you are mid-career, you assume that you will stay in your current profession until you retire. At least that's what you hope. But at the same time, it might not be the case, as you've seen. And since we are in a period of continuous change and accelerating change, I think you can no longer take for given necessarily that what you will do now, or what you do now, you will still do in 10 to 15 years. But for that, you need to know. So knowledge is power. How is that developing in Sweden? Tell us something about the big project you're planning, Maria.
Yeah, so in Sweden, we have an ambition to create a proactive reskilling platform to support different stakeholders across our ecosystem. Our main target groups are employers and then employees. We want to support the employers with good forecast in combination with a simplified strategic workforce planning toolkit with focus on reskilling activities, and also with the guidance on how to have this conversation with their employees, and also where they can find support in their branch organizations and within their industries. From an employee perspective, it's all about allowing employees in a safe and positive environment explore what the future look like for their roles, other roles within their branch or industry, their role within other branches or industries, our future jobs within the green transition and the digitalization, or just quick moves. I might just want to get away from my employer. They might not be the best in the market. And they'll also provide them with the programs that can help them on their move. And that in combination on how to have this kind of conversation with their employer, or in Sweden with our job security councils that have gotten an expanded remit from just supporting people that the companies make redundant to also support people who are employed to reskill into future need jobs. As you can understand, this requires a pretty complex data federation underneath, but we are really trying to work close with our public sector, with the organization that exists within our ecosystem to get this built and to own it and maintain it and fund it over time. We also see that this solution will support unemployed people as well with a different end user solution, as well as students or any company and vendor that want to create something unique for them. But even if these are our main target group, there is a high interest from other stakeholders within the ecosystem. So from the employer journey, the output from strategic workforce planning is of interest for governmental departments, for our universities and training providers, for the job security councils, both from a knowledge perspective, but also from an infrastructure perspective. And even if we have limited functionalities in this platform in the first version, we see the possibility to connect this to the EU wallet once that is implemented fully, to even drive a more personalized journey for the employee, as well as learning experience systems, skills evaluation modules, digital coaching modules, etc., etc. So that's a little bit around bringing the information to especially small and medium large companies that don't have the resources that big enterprise companies has, but also to make it easy for individuals, no matter if you are digital savvy or not, to find the information you need around the future to help you to take valid and data-driven decisions around your future with just entering one point. So that's a little bit what we are trying to achieve. It's an easy piece of thing to do.
Yeah, it sounds banal, no? It's a wonderful challenge, and I hope that you will be the vanguard and that others will follow. Because it would be illogical if we talk about reskilling into digital professions, but then we don't talk about digitalizing the information on that and the empowerment of people on that. Louise, you are again the last. Tell us something. How do you successfully reskill based on Fundación Telefónica's example? What are the tricks?
Okay. I was thinking while Maria was talking that yesterday we were talking about the opportunity that they have in Sweden because there are a lot of data, a lot of public data of the different universities, governments, and it's very interesting to prepare this proactive reskilling platform. Regarding yesterday, our general manager was talking about Telefónica Foundation we are doing in the employability. We are operating not only in Spain, also we are operating in the countries where Telefónica is operating in Latin America. And some years ago, we started to try to give opportunities to the people to train for the digital employment. I always say that we had a great idea. We joined digital with employment. 7 years ago, believe me that it was an innovation. And there were a lot of, we had a lot of content, a lot of programs. Depends of the level of the digitalization of the people is very important, because not only we are working with the people who they want to be a big data expert or cybersecurity expert or something like that. There are a lot of people that they don't have the digital skill, the basic digital skills, and we have to help them also to mentor them and to give the training that they need in its environment. For us, it was very important, and some years ago, 3 years ago, we created one of our famous tool. The name is Employability Map, because it was very important to know exactly the companies are demanding or the needs in that moment. Not only the profile that they are publishing in the different job website, also the skills that they are asking. When, for example, if you are asking a full stack developer, exactly the skills that you need to train that people for the future, to be a full stack developer. No? And for us, it's very important, because the orientation for the people is one of the elements that also in Reskilling for Employment we are talking about that. And we can prepare the training, the customized training or the customized way that they need to be in the future. Depends of their interest. And also, in the other hand, in Telefónica, we are working also with a proactive reskilling program. We have here, there are a lot of colleagues from Telefónica, I suppose. We are working from Telefónica España, the people department of Telefónica Spain, and also Universitas Telefónica is like the corporative university that we have here in Telefónica. We are working with employees of the company, because our president said that we have one of the biggest reskilling program internally in a company. Around 16,000 employees are participating. Depends of the roles in the company, the position on their jobs. They are receiving one of the training. And the clock is pressuring us. Only to mention my last message, also like Telefónica, we are sure that we, in the digital profile, the digital jobs, the digital sector, is very important also to support with programs to wake up the female talent. We have to empower to the women in all of the structure of our company, but also with different trainings. For example, yesterday, our general manager was talking about 42 campus. 42 campus is one of the most relevant projects that we have. It's very, very innovative. It's 47 campus open. Is free for the people. The students learning by doing, peer-to-peer methodology with gamification, and there are 100% of them that they find a job, because the people not only are hiring these students by the knowledge that they are learning, also they are waiting or wanting these people because of the methodology or the way that they have been living with us. No? And in 42, for example, let me only 30 seconds more. In 42, for example, we saw that the women, they felt uncomfortable programming with men. And we decided to create only courses dedicated for women, and the application of them grow very high, and then they told us that in programming, in video game, in coding, in this technology sector, sometimes they feel that they are not in the same level as the men, and when they break down the barriers and they feel that they can, then the technology is a very good place also for them, and we have to work in the primary school also with our kids, with our girls.
Thank you all. We're approaching the end of the panel, but I wanted to give a quick opportunity to our panelists to give a message to you. But first, maybe my message. The first message is do look at the Reskilling for Employment website if you want to know more. At the moment, we have quite a lot of information there about the programs in Portugal, Sweden, and Spain. As we are expanding, we will also expand the website. That's the first one. Second, do internalize that to reskill at the scale we need two things. We need trust between all those who actually share that challenge, because it affects them directly or indirectly. But we also need the determination to make this normal. So today we are sitting here, and what you hear might sound exotic to you. In 5 years, it should be normal. So that should be the ambition. And now maybe I'm turning the sequence around, and Luismi will go first. What's your message to the audience? If you can, keep it at 20 seconds.
Okay, very short message to share with all of you. I think that now is the moment. Now is the moment to help people in the digitalization way. We are sure that the technology is going to give us a lot of opportunities, but now is the time to help the people, because they are going to transform and they are going to change the world.
Thank you. Maria.
Oh, I would like to ask you to be the front runners of this culture change that we need to accelerate.
That was very short and very brilliant. Yeah, sure.
Looking at the clock.
I would ask for, this is a resilience initiative, so I think we are doing this today, and someone will have to be doing this in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So we are probably doing everything wrong. So please challenge us, come in contact and tell us what we should be doing to do it right.
Great. Marco, and you have a bit more time.
Yes, I'll use all my 27 seconds. I think for employers is changing the way you hire. For reskilling to succeed, you need to be willing to hire people that have no previous experience but have gone through reskilling. I think for the education system, adults or kids, it's around the two things we mentioned. One, look at the impact, not just the training, but do this training lead to impact? And the second is we need to add the mindset and the transversal skills. This is something that the lifelong learning starts from there.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much, and thank you for listening. And I very much hope that we get loads of hits on our website and a lot of input from all of you. Thank you.